a house on sinking sand. There was no way the house could ever stand. And when the rain came down, he tried to hold things together. Finally cried, I labor in vain, except the Lord build the house. He that labors, he that labors, labors in vain. She knows the pain, the emptiness of getting those things that she thought were best. She found she had nothing but grains of sand that slipped through her fingers like time in an hourglass. She labored in the vain, except the Lord built the house. She that labors, she that labors in vain. God's word is mighty and marvelous. God increases our lives every day. My soul magnifies the Lord. Yes, come on. God's love redefines my existence. Yes. Just beyond our plans. And when we know in God we will stand, and we'll say, let it rain or shine, we will be safe in the Spirit, in a house God built for me. Don't labor in vain. Except the Lord build a house. He that labors, he that labors, don't labor, don't labor. The Lord, except the Lord build a house. We don't labor, don't labor, no, don't labor, no, don't labor in vain.
Well, good morning. I'd like to thank you for joining us on today's open heart service. I'd like to take a moment to just take a breath in, breathing this breath and releasing this breath and letting go of anything that has come before this time. And I just give thanks for being here now with each and every single one of you as you're here with us, and allowing ourselves to just take this time to set aside all our cares and worries and woes, if any, and to be present. This morning we woke up, before our feet hit the floor, we said to ourselves, it's going to be an awesome day. It's going to be an awesome day. It's going to be an awesome day. And if you didn't say that, you're saying it now, because it's going to be an awesome day. And I invite us, before our feet hit the floor each and every single morning, to say that to ourselves, to lift ourselves up. And as we lift ourselves up, we lift one another up. So join me now in just knowing that I am grateful for this service, for all that have a part in this service, for the beautiful music, and yes, the message. And let us give thanks for the messenger. And as the messenger brings the message to us, let us take it in, take it within, and allow it to forever transform us from where we were at this point in time to where we will be when we hear the message. And so I just give thanks for this time, for this knowing. And together we say, let the celebration begin. And so it is.
What comes from the heart reaches the heart. Good morning and welcome to our Heartstream for this Sunday, January the 26th. I'm so glad you've joined us for this morning's Heartstream. Welcome, welcome, welcome to each and every one of you. As always, I thank you for joining us. I thank you for being a part of this Heartstream. We know that there's a lot that is happening. A lot has taken place this week. We continue to hold hope. We continue to hold faith and be people of faith in the midst of all of this. As I say to people, take care of yourself. Be good to yourself. Be mindful of the type of information and the other things that you take in, because it can take a toll on us, both from a psychological and a spiritual mindset or point of view. You hear me, I've done messages about the castle of your mind, guarding our minds and all of that, and I think that that's important for us as we move forward. And as we see the kinds of things that are happening in this country right now, there are cause for alarm. There are cause for concern. So I would never advocate trying to stick our heads in the sand or do a spiritual bypass or ignore things and say that it's all going to be okay. There are going to be occasions where we're going to have to let our voices be heard, our voices known, take whatever steps we might need to take to be people who are, I'll just go ahead and say it, resisting some of the things that we see happening, some of the things that we see being talked about. So I will just say that. Today, I'd like to invite those of you who are in Memphis, if you have the opportunity to come out at 11 a.m. to Unity Christian Church, 3345 McCorkle Road, for our service celebration there. Every fourth Sunday is Friends and Family Day, in the sense that after the service, there is a meal that you can come and share in, wonderful food that is prepared, and an opportunity for you to fellowship with all of the other people there. And as I've talked about, this whole synergistic relationship that we have established that is unfolding and moving forward. Also, I had put out an appeal earlier about those of you that would like to do maybe some of the things there. And Platform Assistant, if you've been there to Unity, you know that on Sundays, there's a person who basically is the Platform Assistant who does a lot of the things, runs a lot of things with regard to the service. And there is training that's going to be coming up next Sunday after church for anyone who's interested in becoming a Platform Assistant. So if that's something that you're interested in, please contact me. If you make it there, we can talk about it then. If not, send me a message so I can let them know to be expecting you. But it's another way for us to be able to, again, create this synergy between our congregations. For our prayer call now, Ella Aji, who is one of the members of Unity Christian, is now doing the prayer call on Mondays. And there are going to be other opportunities and occasions where we all will be working together in all of that. And I'm excited about it. So please, 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 I hope you can have an opportunity to come out. Thank you for your contributions. Speaking of contributions, contribution statements went out on Friday by email. If you did not receive one, please get in contact with me to let me know. If you think you are owed one, we thank all of the people in their giving for the year 2024. And thank you for that, because as I mentioned, even though we are streaming, there's still expenses that we have to take care of. Just the hosting of this stream and all of that requires a monthly fee and many other things that it is that we do. So thank you for your support. It is important. And get the word out. Let your friends know about us. I greet you. I bless you. I see God.
Today is a day like no other day. Just think and you'll know that it's true. Days like today should be holidays. So I'm singing this message to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Just have a happy day.
There are several ways to give to Open Heart: through our Cash App at OHSC 901, online at OHSC901.com, or text the word GIVE to 615-422-4290.
A powerful way to start or continue your day is with our daily prayer call. Each morning, at 8 a.m. Central Time, a prayer team member provides an inspirational reading and an affirmative prayer. Join us at 901-586-8755.
A treatment for our prayer list to know that all is taken care of. God is the infinite intelligence which creates everything in the universe. God is the intelligence that governs the universe by the life that is. God is all things in expression. I know that I am one with the infinite intelligence, one with infinite abundance, wellness, and wholeness. And the same is true for each person on the prayer list. Just as God is love, I am that which is perfect love, wholeness, and the divine expression of love. And I know that the likeness of perfection that is found in the universe is found in each one. I know that there is only one God, being God all the time. And I operate from this knowing, and knowing that each and every one does as well. God is the director and animator of life itself. All things are taken care of. I further claim that God is always being truth, and God is always being love and wisdom. I see each one focusing attention in God, for in God all things are possible. I now stand witness to the truth of God, attending to it all, and just as God is truth, God is attending to each one's needs. I claim that God's grace is my sufficiency in all things now and forever. I rest in this truth. I am grateful to realize the power of this truth, grateful to allow the fullness of God to sustain each and every one throughout the day, throughout their mortal life into immortal life. Eternally, I give thanks and allow the love of the Christ consciousness to shine through. I'm grateful and thankful. I release my word into the law of mind, that mind which is cognizant only of itself, knowing that it has been spoken, it is done. Now, amen, ashe, and so it is. Join us at 11 a.m. for the Sunday celebration at Unity Christian Church. We'd love to have you come out, 3345 McCorkle Road. And if you're not able to be here in person, you can also watch the service at unitychristianchurch.us, the website. Love to see you. This collaboration between these two magnificent congregations.
Like a vision, make it plain that they may run and not faint. Though the vision is only for a while, it shall speak and not lie. For if the Lord said it, you can count on it. It will do just what it said. Write the vision, make it plain that they may run and not faint. Though the vision is only for a while, it shall speak and not lie. For if the Lord said it, you can count on it. It will do
but the mountain's still here. In Matthew's gospel, in the 17th chapter, there's a story of the master teacher Jesus who approaches a crowd, and he notices his disciples are part of that crowd, and there is a man that is standing there, and as Jesus gets close, he approaches him and he says, I brought my son to your disciples. My son, it was a boy who would throw himself into the fire, into the water, and at various times. And at that time, the belief was that he was possessed by a demon. Now, people looking at that sense and looking at the things that they indicated about the boy's condition think that he probably suffered from seizures, probably epilepsy. But we know that that was back in the time where that wasn't necessarily known. And so usually the cause for things like that would be attributed to something like a demon. But so he came to Jesus and he said, I brought my son to your disciples to cure him, but they couldn't help. And at that moment, Jesus said some things to the disciples and the people who are around him. And I know one of the things that I always make note of is the fact that while there's this narrative that oftentimes goes around about how meek and mild that Jesus was, that actually he wasn't. He wasn't. He got things done and he said things that he needed to say bold in a bold manner very often. We of course know about him going into the temple and overturning the table, the money changers' tables there, and some other times of that. And this was one particular occasion where Jesus let them have it. And if, you know, when you read the English translations of it, it's still kind of mild and tame, still sort of keeping in that narrative of him being, meek and mild. But actually, if you read it in the Greek, you will see that he has some very choice words for them. And I always like to point that out. But to go on about this story, that as Jesus talks to them, one of the things that he says to them is the fact that if they would, if they just had the faith as a mustard seed, they could say to the mountain, move, and it would move. And so as we go into the story, and you very often hear this story, and people talk about faith as a mustard seed, and people a lot of times will call it mustard seed faith. I used to have a t-shirt that was called Mustard Seed Moving Company on the back of it, and people would see that and they really liked it. I liked it too. That's why I bought it. But anyway, the idea that our faith as a mustard seed, and if you know anything about a mustard seed is very tiny. If you think about a sesame seed, it's probably around that size, if not smaller. And he was saying that, and a lot of times people will focus on the size of the mustard seed. But I want to expand that awareness, expand that understanding to a few other things when it comes to the mustard seed, because when we start talking about faith, I think that they're important when we understand the nature, for example, of the mustard seed and of the mustard plant. And we know that the mustard plant is something that often farmers would not plant anything else close by, because that mustard plant is something that will grow wild and it would take over everything else and would choke everything else out. And I really like that thought process and that idea, because for me, it talks about having a faith that goes beyond limits, a faith that goes beyond the kind of traditional limitations and things like that, but goes beyond boundaries, a wild faith, if you will. In addition to that, the idea of faith as a mustard seed, when we look at this also, I think about the fact of what happens to a seed. And the thing of it is, if we can then go to talking about the size of the seed, but in comparison to its size, what comes out of that, what it produces is much larger. But a part of that whole process is what happens to the mustard seed. Now, I want to go into looking at this idea, though, before I continue on with that, with the idea of the mountain, because we know that Jesus was using a metaphor when he talked about, say to this mountain be moved, and it will get out of there, it will move. And we all have mountains in our lives. Those things, if you think about a mountain, it's something that is looming and it's big, it's imposing, it is, it can inspire us and strike awe in our hearts and minds and everything else. But think about something as massive as that. And you think about in our own lives. We have things in our lives that can be mountain-like. We can think about a diagnosis, for example, a medical diagnosis. We can think about financial difficulties. We can think about issues and problems that happen with those that we're in relationships with. We can think about in our jobs or at school or whatever else it might be. Things that loom large in our lives that have this almost impossible situation or feeling about it that is something that is almost insurmountable. And what he is saying to us is that when we have a faith that, first of all, again, is a faith without limits, but also when we have a faith that if you think about again what happens to a seed, and Jesus was talking to people, many of them who were very familiar with farming and familiar with seeds. And the idea is that when you take a seed and you plant it in the ground, that the seed at a certain point, it gives out of itself and it gives over to the nutrients in the soil, and it is nourished by the rain and the sun and all of the processes of the earth and of the universe that begin taking hold to that plant to provide an awareness and a place for that plant to grow and that plant to come out and to sprout out from the seed. And I think that it's important today that as we talk about the things that are looming large in our lives, that we have an assurance that when we apply our faith and when we think about faith and the understanding and the awareness of faith, what it is, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. That when we apply our faith to those situations and circumstances, things happen, things move, change and transformation and whatever else it might be in our lives that we wish to have happen. Things start to move when we put our faith in action. And that is something very important. And I know that when I think about this, that it's again the idea that with faith, it is important for us to understand that faith is something that we put into action. As a matter of fact, I think oftentimes that people will look at faith as a noun, but faith really ultimately is a verb, faithing. And I've talked about that before, but the idea that we put forth this awareness, this understanding that as we put faith into action, that's when things happen. And so it's important for us when we talk about faith, it's about our relationship with God. And our relationship with God becomes important because as with a seed, when the seed is placed in the ground, all kinds of things happen. We know that drought can happen. We know that torrential rains can happen. We know that storms can happen. We know whatever else can happen, but that seed can keep on growing. And our relationship with God helps, just as a farmer nurtures the seed, the faith that we have, our relationship with God nurtures that relationship, and that is important. And in this process, we begin to understand this, our relationship with God being very important. And it's more than just a blind faith. It's about a transforming process that takes place in our lives, that as we continue to trust and to know that the universe is kindly intentioned toward us, that God is directing and guiding our lives, that as we realize this and as we understand this, things do happen. And it requires work. I was going to say that. It requires work. It requires inner work. And, I know I sound like a broken record, but that truly is it. And I'm going to get more into that in terms of what Jesus said with regard to the work. But it's a matter of the work that we do. And a part of our problem oftentimes is that we don't necessarily want to do the work. We live in a society now where we get things so instantaneously almost, and things happen. We have, nowadays I think about the fact that I just yesterday took some packages off my porch, and I know that the order was just put in the day before and the packages have already arrived. We know that we can log on our on the internet and get information and are able to access information these days. We know things like microwaves and other things like that to provide instant results and all of that. But our relationship with God, our relationship with the universe requires us to put more work into it and know that it's a process. And it doesn't always happen instantaneously. I do believe that there are times, and I've witnessed in my own life and in the lives of others, things happening instantaneously. But very often it's about a process and about putting the work in and nurturing that. And we think we could just spend a few hours, but we have to spend the time. Some people think, well, I just need to get some proper prayer cloths or send a donation to a particular minister or whatever else, all of that. No matter how many breakthroughs they promise and all of that, just as Jesus showed us, there's a point in our lives where we have to step off from all else and make our connection with God. We have to put the things to use. I was thinking about the other day when I was looking in my kitchen, and I thought about the fact that, there's a lot that's there to be able to prepare things like, I thought about the fact that if there's a particular dish or item that I enjoy, I can go to the store, I can buy all the ingredients for it. I have some things that are already there in the kitchen. I have the pots and pans and the tools and everything else that are necessary to make that particular dish, but it doesn't mean a thing if I don't take those things out, if I don't start the process, whether I need to preheat the oven or turn on the stove or whatever else it might be, if I need to do the chopping or the mixing or whatever else, is only when I put those things out there that's going and begin working with them that it's going to make a difference. Just having them there doesn't do a thing for me. And very oftentimes we have the spiritual tools and the knowledge and the information, but if we don't put it to use, if we don't operate from a position of expectancy, a position of assurance and conviction with regard to our faith, with regard to the condition, then the mountain will still be there. And I know very often people will look at things and say, well, I have my affirmations, I do my prayer work, I do all of the things that I've been told to do, but the mountain's still there. And I say that it's a process, and it's about continuing to hold hope and to hold faith, but more importantly, to have the assurance that things are going to work out in time, and all of that happening for us. And if we do that, we can make a difference in our lives. And I want to talk about also that within this particular text, it also says that, and there are other versions of this story. And in those stories, Jesus goes on to say, because the disciples come to him later and ask him why they couldn't do it. And he says to them that this kind only comes out through prayer and fasting, only through prayer and fasting. So again, he's even talking about the work that is involved for it to come out. And when we look at that, I think about first of all, prayer. And we know that in our tradition, that prayer is different from what other people and other traditions very often think of when it comes to prayer. Because for us, prayer is not about praying to God. And I know that's a shocking thing maybe for some people to hear, but it's about praying from the perspective of God. We don't beg God to do anything. We don't plead with God to do anything, but we pray from a sense of assurance, knowing it's already done in the mind of God. And as it's already done in the mind of God, it becomes our task through prayer to condition our mind so that we begin to see and hold the space for the infinite possibilities that are there. We create the mental equivalent in our lives for those things that we wish to have happen and we wish to see. And for us, we know that there are 5 stages or 5 movements or 5 elements to prayer. The first, that we are open to new possibility. I open to new possibility. I know that there is a field of infinite possibilities, and I am open to it, and I'm available to that in this. And then I also recognize that God is. I recognize that God is, and whatever quality, whatever thing it is that I wish to have be present in my life, I begin affirming that about God, that attribute of God, seeing that attribute of God appearing and showing up in my life. And as I do so, I integrate I am. I know that I am one with this presence and power, that it is moving through me here and right now, in every situation and circumstances, regardless of condition, regardless of appearance, whatever else. I am one with God. I am aligned with God, and God is expressing in, through, and as me. And it is in God that I live, move, and have my being. And then I go to the stage where I realize I can, I have, I know. And this is where I begin singing the possibility. This is where I begin holding the vision. I begin seeing things how it is I wish for them to be. Not where I am right now, not what my present condition or state is right now, but that which I wish to experience, that which I wish to have happen. And that's what I begin doing with my prayer and my prayer life, seeing that and affirming that and being open and available again to allowing it to happen. And then the final stage is appreciation. I appreciate the shift in consciousness. I appreciate the shift in consciousness, again, that is already done. You hear me use the basketball illustration or analogy all the time, that in playing basketball and shooting the ball, and before it even goes in, it's all net. I already have that feeling, as Ernest Holmes talked about, the fire in the belly, knowing that already it's done. And simply I can turn around and run back down court and listen for the ball to go through the net, being all net, because that assurance, again, that appreciation of the shift in consciousness. But the second element of that is where Jesus also says fasting. He mentioned prayer and fasting. And the metaphysical meaning of fasting is one of denial. It's the abstinence from error thoughts to the end that we may meditate on truth and incorporate it into our consciousness of oneness with God. And that is true. That is, when we start talking about fasting, it's about wrapping our minds around the fact that we can control those things that we allow to have access to our minds, that we can deny those things that are not life-giving, deny those thoughts. And I will have to say this, that in this time right now, where there's so much news and information that is going on about what our current administration and our president is doing, and all of the executive orders and rescinding things and all else, and the news cycle that circulates around that and things that are being posted on social media, it's important to fast. It's important to go on a mental fast, where we are aware and we are diligent about what it is that we allow into our minds and into our consciousness. And the fact of the matter is that we don't give things free rent in our minds, but we take objective look at those things. We have to sometimes say, I'm going to take a break from all of this for my own sanity and my own well-being. Because one of the things I do know is that for so often we will think things and we will create conflict in our own minds. And again, I say this often, that the number one place where our conflict with other people happens is in our own mind. Before we ever have a conflict with someone else, we've already very often created scenarios and everything else. And that's where we're letting people live rent free in our minds. And sometimes It's not as bad as we think. I remember years ago, there was a man that was coming through the graduate program there where I teach, the University of Memphis, and he had to drop out of the program. And I would see him from time to time. I would talk to him about getting back in the program. And he said, well, I'd like to get back in the program, but I'm sure that I disappointed a lot of people. I know that they're talking about me. I know that they don't have a good opinion of me and all of that. And I kept saying to him, I don't think that that's the case. I said, I've been around discussions and things, and I haven't heard anything like that said about you or whatever else. He said, you don't know. I know. I'm pretty sure that that's happening. So I can think about one day when we were having a gathering, there were other of my faculty colleagues there, the coordinator of the graduate program and everything else. So I decided to just kind of slip his name into the conversation just to see what people were saying about him. So I mentioned his name and there was silence. And then finally somebody said, who? And then I, went on to try to describe him and everything. And there was one person, in fact, it was the secretary for the department, said, I kind of think I know who you're talking about. And the thing of it is that what I realized is while in his mind, he had built up this big scenario where all of the faculty and everything else were talking about him. They were disappointed in him. There was no way they were going to let him back in the program. It was in his mind. It was not reality. So we have to be careful and cognizant and mindful of those things that we allow to happen in our lives and things like that. And speaking of the University of Memphis, when I think about, again, going back to the whole scenario of the size of the mustard seed and all of that, I can remember there one particular day as I was walking across campus, there was a spot where I was seated waiting for one of my classes to begin. And as I was sitting there, all of a sudden, I had this mystical experience where I saw in an instant the universe, galaxies just rushing through my mind. And in that same instant, I saw myself as in the midst of the vast universe and galaxy. I saw myself as this tiny, infinitesimal being in the midst of all of that. The stars, the moons, the black holes and everything else, there were all of that. And here I was. And it sort of humbled me in that moment to realize how in that insignificant I was. But the next movement there, the next shift that happened was that in spite of all of that, I felt this loving presence and this overwhelming reassurance that I was loved and that I was a part of all of this, no matter how small I might have felt in contrast to everything else, how loved and appreciated and valued that I was in the midst of all of this. And as I say these things and I think about that, understanding that faith and the awareness of faith and being able to put our faith into action and trusting and letting go will bring about the awareness and the consciousness and the tools and the wherewithal to make the transformations and the shifts in our lives that are necessary, the things that we would like to see happen. And moving through the weeks and the months and the years to come, as we remain rooted in that awareness and that understanding, as we remain being people who operate based upon faith and based upon hope, based upon knowing, as we move through all of these things, even those things that loom large in our lives, even those things that have us concerned and worried and anxious and everything else, those things we can deal with. Those things we can begin moving. Those things we can begin causing the shift, because I remain optimistic. I remain hopeful. My blood type is B positive, and I operate out of that because of all of this. And I'm here today to say to each and every one of you to keep the faith, to hold fast, to remain steady, steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor, the work that you put in, is not in vain. Amen. Ashe. And so it is.
Thank you. I want to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. 'Cause I'm so grateful. So grateful. Oh, grateful. I'm so grateful. So I want to say thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. Now thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. I want to say thank you. Thank you. I want to say thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. 'Cause I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. So grateful. So grateful. So grateful. So grateful. I'm so grateful. So grateful. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. And just thank you. Thank you. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. 'Cause I'm so grateful. Yeah. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I wanna just say thank you now. Just thank you now. 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 Each and every day I'm gonna say thank you.